So let's say you're solving a square one and you get here and you do EO and then you get here. Now what would you do? So chances are you would probably do two algorithms. The first one would solve the corners and then the second one would solve the edges. But what if we use two different algs that could turn that solution from 13 slices to just 9 slices? So here, what if instead we did a JJ, and then we did a small misalignment, and then we got PK, which is a 5 slicer. That would be 9 slices in total, saving you 4 slices over normal CPEP. This is an example of 2-alg PBL, which is basically an advanced extension to the Vandenberg method that will basically replace the corner permutation and edge permutation steps in a much more efficient way. And you only have to learn about 50 easy algs. It's not completely slice optimal, but it's still much more efficient than CPEP and way easier to learn than full optimal. 2-alg took me about 2 weeks to learn from CubeMaster's tutorial, and I'm a fast learner, so it's definitely a time commitment. Plus, it takes months to get comfortable with it. But if you enjoy the efficiency and really want to be fast at square one, it'll definitely pay off in the long run. I'm not going to talk too much about the advantages of 2-alg PBL because Sam Fang already has a video on it that I'll link in the description, but I learned PBL from his tutorial about a year and a half ago, and I average high 6 with a 665 official average. The only real tutorial for it is by CubeMaster, and this video is meant to help fill in any gaps about understanding 2-alg PBL that I wish I had known when I learned it. At the most basic level, 2-alg PBL consists of a first alg and a second alg, both of which will be between 3 and 6 slices. The first alg is almost always JJ, and the second alg will be one of the 50 algs needed for 2-alg PBL as shown in this sheet. Most of these are 5 slicers and they're pretty ergonomic. The second alg will often be normal corner permutation algs like JJ, as well as more advanced algs like KK, PK, and DD. So here's a quick rundown of CubeMaster's tutorial series, which is almost certainly what you'll be using to learn 2-alg PBL. So each of his videos covers a different technique of 2-alg PBL that can solve a bunch of different cases, and most cases can be solved with multiple techniques, and you can sometimes choose which one you want to use. It's important to realize that the videos aren't sorted by PLL groups, but instead by the types of algorithms used to solve them. So for example, his first tutorial teaches 2CP. It's basically just doing 2-alg PBL, but the first and second algs are just normal corner permutation algs, which you already know. So for example, this is a case that can be solved with 2 CPs. So this is a G perm on top and a J perm on bottom. And so with CPEP, you would just do like a J perm and then a U perm. Instead, you can solve this case by doing an N perm on both layers. So that would be an NN. And then you'll get JJ, which is a 4-slice CP. So we did 2 CP algs, which is why the subset is called 2CP. It's important to realize that Sam does not show you how to solve every single PBL, or anywhere close to this, because after all, there are 967 PBLs and there's no way he could show all of them. Instead, his tutorial simply gives you the tools that will allow you to solve any of the 967 PBLs and 2 short algorithms, and you have to apply those tools to each case intuitively to set up to one of the 50 fundamental PBLs that you'll learn from the sheet. So now that you know how Sam's tutorial is laid out, let's talk about the core problem of 2-alg PBL that I and others struggled to figure out at first. So the main thing that Sam actually teaches you is how to turn every PLL into another PLL. For example, he shows that if you do a J perm on an A perm from this angle, so here I would do JJ, and that would do a J perm on top, which would turn the top layer into a J perm, which is what he teaches in his 2CP tutorial. The crucial part to remember is that you have to pay attention to both the top and bottom layers at the same time and do the algorithm that will influence both of the layers in the correct way at the same time. Here's what I mean. So here we have a PBL. This is C perm on top and W perm on bottom. So this would be CW. So in his tutorial, Sam would teach you how to turn a C perm into both an S perm. So if you did JJ here, you would get an S perm, which is pretty useful because it's in a lot of 5 slicers. And if you hold it from this angle, Sam also teaches you that you can get a K perm, which is also in a lot of 5 slicers. Sam will also teach you in one of the videos that if you do a J perm on a W perm from this angle, that you'll get a K perm. Knowing this, we could theoretically set up either SK or KK depending on how we hold the C perm. However, once you learn the 50 important algs, you'll know that there is no good alg for SK, but good KK is a 5 slicer. So that means we want to force KK. Since we want to force KK, we want to force a K on top, and Sam teaches us that if we hold the C from here, we will force a K, so we want to hold it from here, and we want to make sure that we're forcing a K on bottom for the W so that we can end up with K on top and a K on bottom, and then we get this 5 slicer that you'll learn eventually. All of this is to show that you have to think about which PLLs you will be forcing on each layer before you actually do the first alg. And you have to make sure that you will get one of the 50 easy PBLs after you do the first alg. So now I'm going to just show a few more examples of 2-alg PBL and walk you through my thought process for each of them. So here we have an A perm on top and a T perm on bottom. And if you were smart with CPEP, then you could solve this in 10 slices with a JJ like this and then 6 slice good U perms. But you can easily solve this with 2 JJs, which is 8 slices total, and this will be taught in the 2CP tutorial, because you'll learn how to manipulate an A perm into a J perm and how to turn a T perm into a J perm. So if you do that manipulation on both layers at the same time, from this angle, as I'll teach you, then you will end up with JJ. So here's another example. We have an M perm on top and an adjacent on bottom. So with CPEP, you would do like a J on top and then W adj, which would be 13 slices. But with 2-alg PBL, you can do this in just 9 slices, which saves 4 slices or about 30%. So in one of the tutorial videos, Sam will teach you that if you do a J perm on an M perm from this angle with the headlights in front, then you'll get an S perm, which is a useful PLL. And that's pretty much the only useful PLL that you can get from an M perm. But adjacent is a bit more flexible. You have options because you can turn it into a B perm, like this. You can turn it into a K perm, like this, or you can turn it into a P perm if you do a J from here. And considering our options, we could either force SB, SK, or SP. And once you learn the 50 important algs, you'll realize that the only good option from those is SP because it's a 5 slicer and the rest are less efficient. So even though we kind of have options on which cases we force, we know we want to force the most efficient one. So that means we want to force an S perm on top and a P perm on bottom, which would give us SP, which you'll learn is a nice 5 slicer, which is 9 slices total. Lastly, here's an example of when you might need to set up to one of the other options when you have the same PLL. So here we have Q on top and an adj on bottom. So by default, you generally want to think about what a J perm will do to a PLL because that's the most common first alg. And for a Q perm, a J perm will always give you a B perm. This is a B perm. And the only short alg that includes a B perm is BB, which is a 5 slicer. So we automatically want to think of how to force a B perm on the other layer, which is the bottom layer. And as taught in the tutorial, and as I mentioned before, you can turn an adjacent into a B perm by holding the edges in the back and doing a J perm, and then we'll end up with BB, the 5 slicer. Alright, I hope this video helped you understand how 2-alg PBL works and encouraged you to learn it. Please let me know if you have any more questions in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them. See ya!